This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Hello and welcome to Paranormal Pets. I'm your host, Brandy Stark, and on today's episode, we have author Kerry ONeal, who is going to tell us a little bit about his paranormal pet experience, and then we're going to talk about his books, which include werewolves and other supernatural creatures, and we'll get started with that right after these messages.
DINOVITE.com.
When we put him on the Dinovite, he took right to it. All of these symptoms disappeared.
Dinovite is nutrition.
If you want the dog to be healthy, you got to feed it something healthy.
Something that he actually likes to eat. You need to put him on Dinovite.
Dinovite for life.
If you love your dog, you don't just want him healthy, you want him to be happy.
You won't believe how happy your dog will be.
DINOVITE.com.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
And welcome back. Let me go ahead and introduce our guest, Mr. Kerry ONeal. We actually met at a convention in Tampa called Spooky Empire. Kerry, was it your first time being a speaker there?
No, that was the second time. I was actually filled in for somebody last year in Orlando who couldn't show up, and she called me out of the blue, and I said, absolutely, I'll be there.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
It was my first year, and it was a lot of fun. I wasn't sure about a bigger convention, but Spooky just had a great feel about it, and hopefully we'll both be asked back next year. We're going to keep
There's
our...
a lot of fun people there. They really are. It's a lot of fun.
It really was. So let's see. Your bio says that you are from Illinois.
Yeah.
So you're from the Midwest, like most folks.
Well, Northern Illinois, let's say.
Okay. So you're getting used to this wonderfully warm weather.
Yeah.
You've been here since 2004, and then you started writing some short stories and then started publishing collections of short stories called What If, an anthology of 13 short stories. And then you say that each story concept originates from the basic question in the title, but then the similarity ends, entering into a realm of ghosts, the paranormal, inspirational, fantasy, sci-fi, horror, and the unexplained. So you'll be a perfect guest for us today on Paranormal Pets, but this will work well. But I know that when we met at Spooky Empire, we were doing panels on the paranormal, and afterwards you came up and you were telling me your own paranormal pet story. So let's start off with that. What is your paranormal pet encounter?
Well, I've always loved dogs. I like cats. I'm just an animal lover, and I like all pets. I did have a dog, a beagle named Cheddar Lombardi, actually. I'm a Packer fan, so his name was Cheddar Lombardi. And 8.5 years old, and last March I had to have him put down. He had thyroid cancer around his throat. So I had to put him down, and of course we did a little bucket list before he died, which was really a lot of fun. And after me and my wife got divorced about 2 years ago, she let me, when he got sick, she let me have our cat, Callie. And Callie and him have always been close ever since she was a kitten when Linda brought her home as a rescue cat. And after Cheddar died and I had him cremated, I had I had two different urns, and I have one of those little urns you can put a little thing around your neck with some of his ashes in them. And for a couple of weeks after that, Callie and I were both pretty depressed. I still got his kennel up now. She'll lay in it at night, but those first 2 weeks she'd lay in there and she just looked so sad. She'd get teary-eyed. And then after we got his ashes here, it was really strange. I mean, at night I would literally feel like he was climbing up on the end of my bed like he would. He'd sneak up on my bed, when he was alive. Right. And I figured it'd be Callie, and I'd sit up and reach down there and I'd say, Callie, is that you? And nothing there. And I'm like, okay, I'm hearing things. And then it would happen again. And one night it literally woke me up, and I swear to God, I could smell him. And it was the strangest thing because after he was gone and had him cremated, I obviously washed his blankets in his pig kennel. There was no smell of him anywhere in the house. the carpet, I keep the carpet always clean. And I thought, well, I'm just wishing he was still here. And then
Mhm.
Callie started duplicating a lot of his habits. I mean, she'd run up and down the halls like he would, or when I'd come home from somewhere, he would always be looking under the door when I come into the back door where the washer and dryer is, and I'd see his nose there, and he'd start whining. Well, Callie started doing that, and she never did that. She could care less about me, and so she was, starting to duplicating a lot of his habits. And so I thought, this is really strange. And you know
Mhm.
what? I still feel like he's here. And we'll be in one end of the house or the other. And I got a long hallway. And a lot of times she'll go there and just sit there and just stare down the hallway. And I'll go, what's the matter, Callie? Is somebody here? And she just
Mhm.
meows. And I don't know. It's just like we both feel his essence still here.
How
Is that
long?
normal?
Well, that's what's interesting. How long ago did this happen?
Well, I put him down this last March.
Okay.
And it wasn't until, to be honest, it really wasn't until after we got his ashes, about a week or two later, that I started noticing this kind of stuff. I've got some of his ashes in an urn in the front of the house and in the back, and then I got that little vial around my neck.
That is interesting because normally what I hear, cats are usually kind of a shorter time period for direct manifestation, and then dogs up to a year. And then
Mhm.
sometimes you'll hear these really rare stories where they just stay with you forever. I mean, for the rest of your life. But what I find really unique about this story is that your cat picked up the behaviors of your dog, which is kind of a first that I've really heard that. So, what do you think is going on? I mean,
I,
how do you? What's your theory on this?
well, well, as far as Callie's concerned, the cat, I wrote it off as, well, that's her. Just she's finally got me to herself. She's going to do everything she can to do what I enjoyed with him, and that's how I put it off. But I don't know. I've read stories about. I did research on ghosts because I did a couple ghost stories and a few, and one of them I did was called The Shadow, and it was about a 10-year-old girl that was killed in a car wreck at night with her mom. Went over the cliff, and they were both killed at nighttime. And I wrote in the concept of the story that because she was killed at night, an innocent little 10-year-old girl, she didn't know what happened to her. So
Mhm.
when I Googled, got all the synonyms of ghost, one was the shadow, wraith, essence, spirit. So I named the story The Shadow. The shadow goes around the earth looking for a way to get back into earth by replacing another 10-year-old girl's soul. And then I thought, well, maybe a cat or animal is the same way. Maybe they're innocent. They don't know what's going on with them, but you get so devoted to your pets, and all they have is us. Their pets devoted us solely, and I think we miss them so much sometimes. And I think back and forth, I think you can. I don't know. You give me. You're the expert on this, Brandy. I'm just really a little taken aback. It didn't scare me. I think it's kind of cool because it's nice to still feel him around.
Well, there are a couple different theories on this. So one is quite what you're describing, which is the idea that, and it's very Freudian, but that in our grief, we are actually manifesting these ghosts. So, and even in the paranormal world, that becomes an element. Is it a tulpa? Is it this entity that we've created? Or is it our energy that's kind of drawing the spirit of the animal back to stay with us?
Right.
But I think it's what I still find the cat element so fascinating that either the cat is mimicking the dog, which is very possible, or if it's, being influenced. A great question would be, can the spirit of an animal actually possess another
Yeah,
animal?
I
So,
don't know. I don't know
um,
that, like I said, people can always, like you said, people can always think they see a figure in a cloud. Everybody can see something else different in a cloud. And the same as with this, if you really want to believe, you can believe. But for Callie to have the intelligence to think that wish that Cheddar was, I don't know. It's just really a strange concept for me to put into my head and understand. It's like, well, maybe it is real because Callie senses him, and she still sleeps in his kennel at night.
oh, wow.
And his
Yeah,
favorite blanket, she'll sleep on it no matter where I put it. It's really kind of eerie, actually.
I'd be curious to see if the behavior continues. So if in
Yeah.
another 6 months it's still happening, or if the behaviors begin to change over time. We just did an interview with a veterinarian from the UK actually last week, and it
Mhm.
was actually a very interesting thing because, of course, there are a lot of scientific things that people kind of tend to forget about, like dogs and cats can certainly see, hear, and smell much better than we can. So we may be misinterpreting the data to fit with our interpretation of the
True.
story.
True.
But at the same time, we don't know exactly what's going on, and we have not pinned the supernatural world into, something that fits a universal definition in the sense of, this animal behaves this way because there's a ghost. The ghost causes this behavior because a ghost is X, Y, or Z. So it's one of those things that with the paranormal pets, it becomes so nebulous. What do you do with this,
Yeah.
So I guess as long as the cat's happy, my advice would be to continue to observe and kind of see where things go. Are you thinking about getting another pet?
I really miss the dog. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm ready yet, but I would like to get another puppy someday because I've always had dogs.
Yeah, I kind of understand. My father was a cat person. I have pugs. And
I knew that.
Yeah. Oh, pugs are awesome. And I've got one in here who's very quietly sleeping. Normally on these podcasts, you'll hear snoring in the background because they sleep. Okay. Thanks, guys, for the vote of confidence. But I do understand because I know, at least personally, I can't imagine life without a pug. So, I'd be curious to see what would happen with the introduction of a new pet. Particularly a puppy.
Sure.
Your cat may never, ever forgive you, or your cat may completely
you are correct there.
Well, don't feel too badly. It's I have actually seen pugs look at puppies with disdain when I brought them home. So it's just kind of a universal animal reaction as to, what have you done?
Yeah. Oh, I know. They get very needy and very jealous of each other. I know. It's like siblings sometimes,
Absolutely. That's perfect. That's perfect.
I had huskies and a Malamute up in Illinois, and those dogs were amazing. I love those big dogs. They were so much fun.
I bet. And I know, I've seen some of the ideas here in Florida because we've talked back and forth, or at least on Facebook. But, Florida's a little harder because it's so crowded. So, and it's hot. It's hot as heck. So sometimes those bigger, furrier pets are harder.
Sure.
But if you're in love with the breed, I tell people, find a way.
Yeah.
So,
well, Malamutes to be a little harder down here because they got the double coat, almost like a lamb coat and then the thick 8-inch long hair coat. And it'd be too hot for them down here. But I had one Colby. He was 168 pounds. He was gorgeous. Huge Malamute.
That is a big one.
He was very big.
I can't quite imagine trying to walk something that big.
Everybody walked away on the other side of the street. It was fun.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Well, we're going to pause here for a commercial break. And then when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about your books. Does that sound good?
Okay, sounds great.
All right. We'll be right back after these messages.
Now, time for something really scary. A word from our sponsors. Paranormal Pets will reappear before you can say Bigfoot. Don't run away.
It's DesignerPetSweaters.com. Hand-knitted designer sweaters for your precious pup or cool cat. Beautiful couture patterns for your pets, including custom-knitted formal wear, casual wear, yachting, and even sports-themed. Many designer pet sweaters include feathered tammy hats, top hats, and a lot of sparkle. Each sweater includes leg loops, front paw sleeves, and leash opening. Visit DesignerPetSweaters.com to order your four-legged fashions today. Your pets will stay warm for the winter and be runway ready. Large or small, we fit them all. DesignerPetSweaters.com.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Did you hear that? Our commercials have mysteriously disappeared. Paranormal Pets is back with our haunted host, our ghost host,
Brandy Stark.
And welcome back. We are concluding our interview, or the second half of our interview here, with Kerry ONeal. He told us his paranormal pet story, and now we're going to find out how he, as a creative, utilizes the supernatural and animals in his books. So I know we talked a little bit about werewolves at Spooky Empire. What was kind of the neatest thing that you found when you researched werewolves?
Well, I researched it clear back to the Middle Ages, and it was during the bubonic plague when a lot of the original folklore came out. And it was readily believed back then, that God's scourge was cleansing the world of evil and people during that time. And everybody was terrified of wolves in general because they're afraid of their eating their children or spreading the plague. And of course, at the time, a lot of deep religious beliefs has always been a catalyst in justifying violence, which is something they don't understand. And that's even up to today. But when I researched, it was the gypsies they believed they had a spiritual connection with any of the beasts of the night. And the pentagram symbol was a powerful weapon. They said that would ward off evil in their beliefs. And what was really interesting, you've watched and read werewolf stories or seen the movies. I couldn't find anything about a werewolf, how it recovered its mortal form after bursting through a human shell, Mm-hmm. And I thought, how did they do that? So I developed my own solution to the problem when I wrote my first werewolf book. When I wrote it, I added in the book that after the beast is released, their werewolf autonomically consumes its mortal remains. So it can heal itself inside of itself and replace its existence as immortal when the full moon is over. And I thought that was kind of a neat concept to go that way. And then I also when I researched, it also said that they believed if you ate wolf meat and human meat, either sold by hunters back then as wolf meat and people didn't know what they were eating during the Black Plague to families, or they'd eaten the wolves who had resorted to eating victims of the plague, they were cursed and they'd be a werewolf. And so I added that into this. And then a bit in werewolf, I did where the cursed werewolf, when he bites a werewolf, he can it's instantly controlled by the superior cursed werewolf. And then I went a little farther and I researched wolves in general. And I thought, why not this new evolutionary breed of animals, the werewolf predator, why can't they develop a pack, like the wolves do, alphas, betas, omegas, the lead warriors, et cetera, et cetera. So I did put that concept in it. So the cursed werewolf becomes so powerful, he can control his bitten beast telepathically, and then he develops these packs. And so my hero of the story, this Adolphe, he becomes a cursed werewolf by accident, of course, and he ends up being actually chosen by wolves when he was a young boy. He didn't know what was going on, to be the alpha of all the new evolutionary breed that's coming about. And so his nemesis is Conrad, this guy out of Germany, and he's a total badass werewolf. And he was a serial killer cannibal before he was even cursed as a werewolf. And so they meet in Paris in the catacombs, and the battle takes place there. I've added a vampire in it, Andrea Corsini, and she's from Italy. And what's interesting in the book, Brandon, maybe I told you this, I got a chapter in the werewolf book, and it's called Crossing Paths. And he talks about meeting the first vampire he's ever met in the catacombs of France. Well, this werewolf, the vampire story I'm writing, when a predator dies, Andrea Corsini has a chapter, Crossing Paths, where she talks about meeting her first werewolf in the catacombs of Paris. So I'm intercrossing both stories into it. And I went ahead and threw gargoyles in it too. So the vampires, gargoyles that come alive on the Church of Notre Dame to help battle this monstrous pack, 150 plus of evil werewolves out of Germany. So, and so I use a religious connotation throughout the book. And that's what I thought was interesting, because back then everything was, religion was the reason everything happened, or the best way to solve something. So, and that's how I wrote it.
That is interesting. And of course, you've tied in a lot of unique elements. For example, I know in the ancient Greek world, the idea of the Lycathos, the man wolf, was literally because of King Lycos, who basically, well, he didn't eat, but he sacrificed a child on the altar of Zeus. And that was basically implied cannibalism. And it was just so horrific that the gods thought he was animalistic, that only, true predators eat their young or kill their young. And so he was turned into a wolf. So you kind of end up with this idea of killing others, or the cannibalistic ideals. I think that in the Middle Ages, they even talked about, of course, the devil and special salve and the wolf skins, that you put these on to take them off. But what a phenomenal story. And of course, werewolves and vampires have certainly been kind of going together for a little while, but the gargoyles are fun.
I thought that was a neat thing to put in, because they're part of the guardians of the church, and not just draining out the rainwater off the road. Right. You brought up vampires did that too in Greece. That was Ambrosio was supposedly the first vampire in the Greek mythology, and he had fallen in love with Selene, one of the oracles of the Apollo temple in Athens. And so he went to steal Selene, And Apollo found out that they were going to meet the next morning. He's going to take her away, and Apollo was kind of in love with her. And so he put a curse on Ambrosio that his sunlight would burn him, so he couldn't meet with her.
Oh, wow.
And then he went to steal the bow from his twin sister, Artemis, who was the goddess of war in that. And she found out he's trying to steal her silver bowl for Hades, where he and Selene were planning to hide forever with their love. And Hades said they could do that. And she found out and put a curse on him so silver would burn him. So he was the first vampire. That's where the story comes from there. When you brought that about the werewolf, that's true. That's right. And same thing for the vampires.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, it turns out we owe a lot to the Greeks. Well, now, how can people find your books? I know you've got multiple titles. How can they find the books or get a hold of you if they're interested in learning more?
Well, the easiest thing is actually Amazon is amazing. They really are. I got an Author Central page on Amazon. I even put my website. I got a website too. It's kerryonealauthor.org. It's very easy, all written together. But on Amazon.com, you can Google my name and you can go right into Author Central, the author's page, and everybody does that. And well, everybody should because they're very helpful. And you can order them directly from there. I mean, I've got them on Kindle right now, free for a limited time. And like this Werewolf Reign of Adolphi is not only $9.99 paperback. So the What If comes in hardback. That's a bigger book, about 650 pages. That's like $30-some hardback, I think, in paperback and on Kindle. But they're there, and I'm still writing.
Excellent. And let's make sure folks know how to spell your name. So it's Kerry, and then ONeal, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so they can go onto Amazon and look for these books. And can you give us a little hint to your current book, just a short little idea so folks can keep an eye out for it too?
The one I'm working on now, or
the one you're working on now?
Oh, that's easy. It's When a Predator Dies. It's about Andrea Corsini. She becomes a vampire with an old vampire in a cave outside of Village, Italy, and she's only 17 years old. And of course, she's a virgin. And when she gets turned, she ends up being so incredibly powerful that Trivosa, who had changed her, was actually a creation of Ambrosio. I'll throw that in there from the original vampire. And she slaughters Trivosa, and she travels all over Europe in a bloodlust rage because as a new child vampire, there's nobody to guide her. And she just, her superior powers, she doesn't understand what's going on. And then she starts, after the centuries, realizes what's going on after she meets Adolphe. As she goes across Europe, goes into England, ends up going on a prisoner ship over to Massachusetts because England, in the late 1800s, England used to send a lot of prisoners over to prison in Massachusetts, and she meets another girl, and they fall in love, and young girl, and they go to America. And I won't tell the rest of it, but the title is When a Predator Dies, and that could be applicable to the vampire she ends up killing, Andrea Corsini. It could apply to the plague because it's all during the same period as the Adolphe period with the bubonic plague. So it's the whole synopsis is, I thought, well, when a predator dies, how about a vampire? What happens when a vampire? Do they reincarnate? Is there heaven and hell for them? And a lot of religions believe in reincarnation, or what happens to a vampire when they die? So that's the whole concept.
And when do you think that'll be out?
I'm on chapter 5 right now, and there's 11 chapters in it. So I got 6 more chapters. I'm doing a bloodlust chapter now, and then the next chapter is going to be Crossing Paths, where she meets a werewolf, Adolphe, in Paris.
So you think maybe early 2020?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. So we'll have to tell our listeners to keep an eye out for that as well.
Yeah, and we want to tie in the same middle of the story. I love that, Crossing Paths. In the same chapter name, only they talk about meeting each other for the first time, meeting a werewolf or a vampire. So
that is pretty cool. So you see it from both perspectives.
Right.
Excellent. Well, we want to thank you so much for being on Paranormal Pets. This will be a podcast that'll be up through the website, and we're looking forward to getting this out there. I hope that you and Callie do well, and when you get the puppy, and let's see what happens next.
And if she starts barking, I'll let you know that too.
Well, please do. That would be awesome. That would be a spirit possession.
Yeah.
So for our listeners out there, I'm just going to remind you all to continue to adopt. There's plenty of rescues out there. There's all sorts of animals that need good homes. We just had 350 that were put up for adoption in Tampa. So please remember that and tune in for the next episode of Paranormal Pets. Happy haunting.
Pet Life Radio presents Paranormal Pets, where you can always expect the unexpected. Each week we'll discuss all aspects of weird or spiritual animal encounters, ghosts, totems, psychic animals, animal souls, animal angels, and animals in religion, with a little cryptozoology thrown in. Step into the supernatural world of pets every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.